All right, guys. So apparently, recently, Trump made the claim that Canada wants U.S. healthcare. As is often the case, or almost always the case, just about everything that comes out of that man's mouth is a lie. And I'm here to fucking expose those lies with facts. So first we're going to do something a little bit more anecdotal, and we're going to give like a little conversation here. I'm going to play a video for you. It's about a little over 5 minutes long. It won't be too long. So let me share the screen here.
Do you find it ridiculous that the U.S. still
Hold on.
does not have universal health care? And yeah, the fact
We've got some kind of a freaking issue here. That should have fixed it.
that it is a majority American audience, I don't think it's a surprise we saw a lot of this question. It's a very hot topic at the top of a lot of people's minds in the States right now. And you have two presumptive presidential candidates, neither of whom are advocating for this, even though the polls I see coming out of the States, I think a majority of people do advocate for universal health care.
Yeah.
Before they continue, correct. The vast majority of the United States want Canada's healthcare, not the other way around.
We haven't lived the American life, obviously, of understanding the struggle of what it's like to have to pay to just go see the doctor and for your general health. We are so used to just not having to think about that. Of course, there are some things that you pay for, like you end up paying for part of your glasses prescription, or part of your dentist you may end up paying for out of pocket.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Right, so it's
So
not
just
like,
to be clear, it's not like everything is
not
covered
everything in Canada is completely free, and then some things depend on, you can get better insurance than the standard provincial healthcare.
Yeah,
right.
through
So there are
employment
options.
I guess the core point is, though, like, we can't relate.
Right.
And it just seems super bizarre to us, this idea of someone having to make a financial decision about, do I get medical treatment for something like at a hospital, or can I not afford to?
But it's not even just treatment. Like, I've talked to nail bloggers about this before. As I used to be friends with a lot of nail bloggers, and some are from the States. So we just kind of swap like life stories while we report. And I just remember someone, I think it was from Georgia, just explained to me that she didn't want to go to the doctor at all, because going to the doctor just to see what her runny nose or her sore throat was would have cost her like $200 just to visit a doctor. So what happens is people are deterred from going just to get a health check. And so whatever their issue may be, whether it's nothing or something really serious, they just keep putting it off, and then they're not getting the preventative care that they need, which ultimately in the end can make someone a lot sicker and things end up a lot worse. So that's something we don't have to think about. But when I talk to our American counterparts or friends, I realize how privileged we are that is not a strain on us. Like, we don't have to think about our health in that way.
No, I mean, it's not to say the Canadian system is perfect, though, right? There are a lot of people in Canada who are on long waiting lists to get a family doctor, because otherwise you basically have to end up waiting at these clinics and with incredibly
But that makes sense. When healthcare is made available to everyone, it is going to be a bit harder to access. That's
I don't want to put this idea out there that the Canadian system is perfect. Although I should say a lot of Canadians, I think our healthcare system is a sense of pride for a lot of Canada. Like in the last 10 years, the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, had a competition like American Idol style. You can like call in to vote, and they were trying to find out who was the greatest Canadian ever. And I'm pretty sure the winner was Tommy Douglas, who was a politician from, I think, the 50s and 60s. He was the premier of Saskatchewan, I believe, but he is widely recognized as one of like the fathers, or one of the most important political figures in why we have universal health care in Canada. So the fact that like there was a popularity contest for who's the best Canadian ever came down to the guy who is one of the main people responsible for why we have public health care, I think says a lot about how much Canadians are proud of the fact that we have this. So it's something that I honestly took for granted for a long time, because I didn't really know. And I remember being in university even and starting to get things like birth control, and after my student plan and what OHIP, which is our provincial government payer, I guess, for any drugs that you need.
I ended up paying like $5 or something a month, which I was like, fine, you know, like that was at the end of the day the expense I had to pay. But sometimes on the receipt it would show you what the actual retail amount was, even though you never paid that amount, and it would say something like $90. And I remember like, who the hell's paying $90 for birth control? And then as I, you know, learned things about the world,
you came out of your igloo and
no, I didn't. No, but like it's just something that you don't think about because it's something you don't deal with. So I did feel kind of like blinded to that because no one was really telling me that unless I was listening to like American news.
Yeah. So I guess the answer is, yeah, we do kind of find, like, I'm not an expert in the American system. I'm not sure what Obamacare looks like and if it's a good or bad thing.
Right.
I don't know if there's a hybrid system that makes sense. And there are some unique things about America and the fact that the pharmaceutical industry and a lot of the research being done for drugs is happening there in ways it's not happening in the rest of the world. I think it's important to recognize there are some differences, but I'd have to think a country as great and wealthy as America should be able to take care of its most vulnerable people.
Yeah. And so to answer the question, I don't find it ridiculous wouldn't be the best word to me. I feel kind of like sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous in a sad kind of way.
Yeah.
All right. First part over. Admittedly, that's a little bit anecdotal, but I think that it covers pretty broadly like the thoughts of like how hilarious this idea is. Yeah, you've got all sorts of like what Americans try to do is in order to keep us like I guess from getting all pissed off and freaking livid about the situation and comparing ourselves to others is they'll make up lies. For example, yes, it is true that the wait times are a little greater in Canada than they are in the United States, but they get exaggerated to an extreme degree. Like you like Americans will put out these fucking stories that like there's people dying in waiting rooms. That's not true. That's all fucking lies. It's just because they don't want to give you universal health care because, well, one of the big reasons is because there's money in politics and the healthcare industry is fucking huge. And the truth of the matter is they care more about that money that they get than they care about the American people. So let's now jump into something that's a little bit more objective. New poll shows Canadians overwhelmingly support public health care. Group says advocates of private system are out of touch with most Canadians. In a last-ditch effort to convince Canadians that their public healthcare system should be privatized, Canadian Medical Association President Robert Quillette has promised to pull out all the stops during the association's annual meeting next week. Trouble is, Quillette's mission to lead the change to privatization is exactly the opposite of what 86% of Canadians want. A new poll conducted by the Toronto-based Nanos Research points to overwhelming support, 86.2%, for strengthening public health care rather than expanding for-profit services. With more than 8 in 10 Canadians supporting public solutions to make public health care stronger, there is compelling evidence that Canadians across all demographics would prefer a public over a for-profit healthcare system, said Nick Nanos, president for Nanos Research. Oops. Nanos Research was commissioned by the Canadian Health Coalition, a nonpartisan group that supports Canada's public health system, to conduct a random telephone survey of 1,001 Canadians between April 25th and May 3rd. The margin of accuracy for a sample of 1,001 is plus negative, whatever the hell that symbol means, 3.1 percentage points. Meanwhile, Canada's government just released a report titled Healthy Canadians, a federal report on comparable health indicators 2008. Its findings almost identically mirror the CHC polling results. In that report, a leading indicator points to the fact that most Canadians, 85.2%, aged 15 years and older, reported being very satisfied or somewhat satisfied with the way overall healthcare services were provided, unchanged from 2005. Michael McBain, national coordinator of the CHC, commented, "Throughout our campaign, Canadians have told us they want to keep our healthcare system public and to improve it with made-in-Canada solutions. They also have told us they flat out reject Dr. Quillette's proposal to provide us with American-style two-tier medicine. This poll certainly underlines that for us. 86% is a significant portion of the population. It is striking that Dr. Quillette would be so out of touch with the pulse of most Canadians. McBain warned that Quillette's latest effort to replace public health care with a private system uses language that is misleading. If imported into Canada, Dr. Quillette's ideas about activity-based funding, competition, and more private delivery would not yield European-style care, but instead would lead us down the road to U.S.-style care. McBain continued, at the CMA's annual meeting later this month, you will hear Quillette talk about patient-centered care, but he really means profit-centered care. He will talk about transformative healthcare, which really means transforming a public system to one that is private. He will also unveil results of a CMA survey that he claims shows support for his new privatization scheme. In fact, the language used in the CMA survey was so vague and misleading that its results cannot possibly be interpreted as support for more for-profit medicine. McBain said that Quillette, who owns or manages 5 private for-profit diagnostic clinics, has a history of misleading Canadians. Recently, the CMA president toured Canada touting the merits of what he called the European model of healthcare, cobbling together selective pieces of information from different European systems to lull Canadians into accepting the idea of more private, for-profit service. Dr. Quillette needs to stop misleading Canadians and start telling them what he's really up to. Privatizing our healthcare system, said McBain. His transformational change agenda is his last kick at the can before becoming the CMA's past president. Dr. Quillette's privatized for-profit vision won't solve a single problem for our public health care. And more importantly, Canadians don't want it. And they've said this loud and clear. Those are the facts. As always, the GOP and particularly Donald Trump just spout lies constantly and hopes that if you just spout lies all the time, if you repeat the same one over and over, eventually some people might start believing it. And if you're retarded, you might. But the fact of the matter is, our fucking healthcare is backward as fuck, and nobody likes it, including Americans. A vast majority of Americans want single-payer healthcare, more like Canada's system. So don't believe bullshit. Thank you for your time.